Hey, 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 happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, GamingGang.com, of which I happen to be the founding editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Wednesday, May 6th, 2026. Tonight is live stream 1319. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out it's super casual around here. Simply hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news, and then we normally will kind of tackle a topic, and chat will join in with me, and we'll kind of bounce around some ideas about a particular aspect of our hobby. And tonight, I'm going to ponder if the old school renaissance has peaked. Maybe is it on its downward swing? We shall discuss, but of course, before we get into that, we will be tackling the latest tabletop role-playing game news of the day. And of course, I should also mention, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And then, of course, because this is a live show, there is chat available. You have to be a member of the subscriber, I guess I should say, of the channel for at least 60 minutes before you can take part in chat. But as long as you check off that box, if you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Semper Buffo. Kevin R. Smith is with us. I see Mark Hawkswell, Harvey Chuckles, sometimes in the winter. 245 Trioxin is with us once again, as is Pete Strakulich. And we might have the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D as our chat moderator tonight. That is a possibility. She might be lurking in the shadows. Sometimes in the winter says they just spent over 40 minutes trying to figure out the riddle on Historica Arcanum, Coven of Salem, for a chance to win their entire book collection. No one has gotten it right yet. Wow. There you go. Sweet. Mr. Sandman is also with us once again. Said they're interested to hear what I have to say as someone that started and pretty much only played 5e, but has been very intrigued by and wanting to run old school Renaissance games. Well, sit tight. We will be talking about that. You might be surprised by my thoughts, if I actually have any. I do. All right, so let's jump on into the news, because the first major supplement for Old School Essentials has launched on BackerKit. I've got the scoop on the Demonic Grimoire from Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral. The Demonic Grimoire is the first major official rule supplement for Old School Essentials. I know, isn't that hard to believe? But it is. Designed by Gavin Norman, Chance Dudenak, and Brad Kerr of Necrotic Gnome, this 176-page tome is a toolkit for expanding the game with demons, cults, and dark magic, including 8 demon lords, Eidolons of ultimate evil, detailed with epic level stat blocks, planes of hell, diabolical schemes, unholy spells, and mortal cults. Over 60 hellish monsters to challenge characters of all levels, from lowly tormented souls to the mighty lords of hell. Over 70 new magic items infused with demonic power. Rules for demonology, magic circles, summoning rituals, infernal pacts, and fiendish familiars. There are new character options: the Chaos Knight, the Cultist, the Demon Hunter, and the Tiefling. There's also referee advice for running campaigns with demonic elements, including campaign frameworks and adventure seeds. The Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual is my favorite RPG book of all time, and like many gamers, I especially love the devils and demons in all their baroque, terrifying majesty. Working with a fantastic team of writers and artists to produce a source book that channels that wonderful, sinister, esoteric flavor for old school essentials games has been a dream project, shared Norman, the lead designer on the demonic grimoire. There is a rather short backer kit video, so let's give it a peek. Drag your campaign through hell. Well, this project funded within minutes of its launch. You can reserve a copy of the A5 size hardcover with PDF for a $33 pledge. If you want to just score the PDF alone, you can do so for a $15 pledge through June 5th. Expected fulfillment is January of next year. And the way it is laid out, once this project ends, you will have the PDF probably in about a month or so. So pretty fast turnaround. They're figuring pretty much from the time that this goes to print, it will be about 6 months before it gets right into your hands. So as far as I understand, this is good to go. This is not one of those crowdfunding projects where it's like, oh, well, you know, we don't have all the artwork and layout done yet. Nah. I think it is all set. Pretty sweet. Very nice. Very nice. So I should also mention, sadly, there was no giveaway last night. Yeah, I know. I didn't forget about it. I just didn't have anything to give away. But I do tonight. Okay, don't get your hopes up. It's not this. But it is sticking with our theme tonight. I am going to be giving away 2 copies of the Old School Essentials Classic Rules Tome in PDF to a couple of lucky viewers. And I will have the trivia questions after the news. So there will be 2 trivia questions. First one with the correct answer to one or the other is going to be a winner. So there you have it. There you have it. So I should point out our abbreviation is TGG, not GG. I'm amazed by how many people hang out, watch the streams, visit the website. Forget that it's the gaming gang, not gaming gang. So Mr. Sandman says Shadow Dark definitely looks good too. I've reviewed that. Castles and Crusades caught their attention. Plenty of reviews of Castles and Crusades around here, especially because they're located in their home state. There you go. Very cool. So Mr. Sandman says they love the look of OSC stuff, but never bought it. Deciding on an OSR system has become one of the hardest things to do. We'll actually kind of tackle a little bit of that tonight. I think that kind of fits into our topic. Let's see. Der Krieger is with us, as is Zarian. W. Forge has arrived. I think Zarkwan. There we go. Zarkwan's with us too. So we've got chat rocking and rolling tonight. And Der Krieger says, the best part is they're all generally cheaper than WotC and other large products. Plus, they're usually easy to mix and match. Yeah, for the most part, they can be. Especially if they're, like, I would say, edition adjacent. You know, like AD&D and Basic Expert. They're pretty damn close there. Tweak here and there is usually all it takes. And Seamus Todd has joined us. Might be a first-time visit because that nickname isn't jumping out at me. So welcome aboard. Thanks for hanging with us tonight. Let's move on to our next news piece because the Laundry second edition of Black Bag Jobs Reopened is now out in print for my friends over at Cubicle 7 Games. I've got the dope. Some cases can never be closed. Some doors can never be locked. Black Bag Jobs Reopened revises some of the classic adventures for the Laundry role-playing game, along with new missions to provide a host of assignments for your unsuspecting operatives. Life in the Laundry, Her Majesty's Occult Services, can involve a lot of tedious desk work. But when sinister forces try to break into our reality to gain information, like an alien black bag operation, working for the Laundry can suddenly become exciting, dangerous, and terrifying. This includes 6 exciting adventures that send Laundry operatives around the world and beyond on thrilling and deadly missions. You'll find adventure hooks and additional adventure ideas to inspire game masters and to lead to new missions. Heroic agents, menacing aliens, and otherworldly threats are to be found within. And there are more reports to file to claim those expenses. The 144-page hardcover with PDF, if you order from Cubicle 7 Games, carries an MSRP of $39.99. The PDF is out. It's been out for a little bit. You can grab that over at DriveThruRPG for $25.99. I have reached out to my connection over at Cubicle 7 Games to see about maybe sharing some reviews of the Laundry stuff. I think it's all hitting right now. So I think the core book, if I remember correctly, it's broken up into 2 core books, like an operative's guide and a game master's guide. I think those were just hitting stores. This is just hitting stores because I know there had been a bit of a slowdown, I guess, in the pipeline, or a blockage in the pipeline. I'll say that with some of the Cubicle 7 Games releases. So there's actually quite a bit that is coming in the next couple of months. Got the old world. We're going to get that starter set. We're going to get the core books, I believe. That is something I'm really looking forward to. So we shall see. We shall see. So Grimy Son of Groin is with us once again. Semper Buffo says it's 4 books total. Not at its core, right? I don't remember 4. That'd be kind of crazy, wouldn't it? I mean, there might be 4 books right now that are hitting for the Laundry. That is very, very possible because I thought there was something else besides this. So now we'll find out. J-Man has joined us tonight in chat. Thanks for hanging. Yes, Semper Buffo says, yes, it is 2 core books. That's what I thought. I thought it was like an operative guide and also the Game Master Guide. On to our next news piece, because Hobbit Tales is arriving in June for the One Ring. And here's what I know by way of Free League Publishing. Hobbit Tales is a supplement for the One Ring, the official tabletop role-playing game based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, offering all you need to take your first steps into Middle-earth and experience the adventures hobbits get up to when they cannot avoid it. Explore the Shire with a thorough description of its 4 farthings and 5 exciting ready-to-play adventures, fully playable also by taking on the roles of some hobbits whose descendants will go on to do extraordinary things, such as Primula and Rory Brandybuck, Paladin Took, and Bilbo Baggins himself. Note that the material in this supplement has been published previously in the first starter set for the second edition of the One Ring. The hardcover with PDF can be pre-ordered for $39.99. PDF is not available yet, but if you do pre-order, you will receive the PDF once it arrives, and the book lands in stores on June 2nd, so that PDF should be right around the corner. And Wallona's Cave has popped on in, and yes, Kevin R. Smith points out, this sounds like the old starter set. It is. It is the Adventures in the Shire booklets from the starter set. So the reality is, this really isn't an essential to pick up. In fact, if you have the starter set, don't even bother. I mean, that's the reality of it. I got to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that this is making its appearance as a hardcover because it was in the starter set. And yes, I get it. There is a new starter set that is out. Well, newer, I guess. I have reviewed it if you're curious about it. And that did not have such a Hobbit focus, I guess I would say. But to be very honest, I thought the adventures in the first starter set, which is going to make up Hobbit Tales, were fine. They were okay. Not super exciting, not, pulse-pounding excitement, but I thought it kind of captured the Shire pretty nicely. Wallona's Cave said that starter set was too rich for their blood. Grimy, son of Groin, says, if I had a nickel for every PDF that's out there, you'd be a rich person. Moonright Long, the second edition of the Extraordinary Role-Playing Game is out in PDF. Speaking of PDFs, I've got the skinny from Kodi Gonzaga. Extraordinary gives us beat-up canvas backpacks and dirty duct tape sneakers. Kids holding bloody hands grasped a little too tight. Strange and dangerous powers chasing dark forces. People who can't or just won't understand. And an endless journey on the side of a winding highway asking, what do you do next? Extraordinary is a tabletop role-playing game where you play kids with extraordinary powers on the run from danger in the ordinary world. It is a game of belonging outside belonging, a diceless and GM full game system that uses tokens and the player's imagination to create a narrative, focused and role-play heavy story. The game is built for 3 to 6 players and intended for long-form play, but alternate rules for GM'd or one-shot play are also included in the book. Inspired by Maximum Ride, Percy Jackson, and Animorphs, this game tackles themes of homelessness, child endangerment and abuse, bigotry, young kids with grand destinies, and what it means to be something other than ordinary in more ways than one. The 208-page PDF is available at Drive-Thru RPG for $15. I gotta also point out, this kind of reminds me a little bit of the Marvel comic Runaways. Got a surprise that wasn't listed as an inspiration here. And then weirdly enough, I think this is supposed to be a modern setting, but the artwork sort of has a fantasy role-playing game feel to it. Kid with a sword, somebody else with a bow. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but this could be kind of interesting. Tessie Trekkie has popped on in saying, "Belonging Outside Belonging, my favorite non-role-playing role-playing game." W. Forge points out, Dragonbane did the same thing with the complete rules in a box set, just released the core rules in hardback later. I think that was more a case where people wanted the rules as a hardcover than freely kind of double dipping. Because I do recall when people realized that the starter set wasn't really a starter set, it was the complete game for Dragonbane. And actually, it wasn't even advertised as a starter set. I think people just assumed it was. And then they were like, well, wait a second. Why isn't this rulebook a hardcover? Almost every single Free League Publishing release, especially core rulebooks, do tend to be hardcovers. And then, of course, we had Twilight 2000, so that kind of broke the mold as well, because that wasn't hardcover. But still, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. All right. Sean Mayer is joining us. We got a pretty rocking and rolling chat tonight. Actually, about the past, month or so, chats have been pretty full. Well, compared to, I usually we'll have it seems like 25, 30 people hanging in chat. All right, on to our last news piece. Now available in print and PDF is issue number 8 of the Matter Hag. And here's the deets from Cipher Bureau. Excuse me. Me. What the hell? Got a little frog in my throat suddenly. Welcome, fellow conspirators from distant realms, to the Matter Hag. Herein I confess my alignment with powers beyond this world, this rat raft moving rather widdershins to our grandest strategy. Now keep all eyes on the prize. This scene is designed for use with the basic, expert, and advanced editions of the original fantasy adventure game, and is therefore compatible with the vast treasure store of old school rules, such as Old School Essentials, Labyrinth Lord, original AD&D, and the like. In this issue, the original Magic User class gets its upgrade. Updated Magic User class with variant rules for acquiring new spells and using borrowed and stolen spell books, as well as options for playing up to level 36, as promised, but never delivered in the original basic expert editions. Magical mentors for magic users with variant rules for acquiring spells at first level from an Academy Magister, Artillery Mage, Guildmaster, Magician, Liturgist, Tower Wizard or Witch, etc. There are 74, it says 74 plus, so does that mean 75? New spells, including both original spells and spells adapted from the classic rules, perfect for any campaign, but especially useful in a decadent, high-level world of conjurers, warlocks, wizards, and archmages. Examples include animate objects, banishment, binding, and unbinding, conjure thought form, counterspell, demon summoning, entropic misjunction, familiar spirit, ghostly form, permanency, phantasmal to material force, pyromancy, shape change, telekinetic sphere, wish, wizard's loyal henchman, and wizard's monstrous hand, among others. You'll find high-level NPC classes for creating and running mentors and villains and their various puppets, or archmages, human or monstrous mages of power, or other major players, from extra planar academy ruins, a conspiratorial magic users guild, and other rival factions. Plus, dueling wands that facilitate magical duels, hedge mages as mysterious traders of black market magic, schools of magic, and more. All elegantly packaged in a well-designed 35 pages. Can you believe that? All of that is packed into 35 pages. The softcover zine with PDF is available over at DriveThruRPG for $10. If you want to grab just the PDF alone, it is $7.50. I thought this sounded kind of interesting. Plus, it fits right on in with tonight's topic. Tessie Trekkie said, Twilight 2000 in a middle box is still one of their favorite special edition games they own. That's cool. I have never actually seen that up close and personal. W. Ford says, I'm getting tired of role-playing games focusing on real-life trauma. It was interesting a few years back, but I want to play to escape the realities of life, not to game them. Completely see where you're coming from. I do sort of get the feeling that with Extraordinary, it's more fantastical than like trying to delve on into, like a therapy session. But yes, I'm with you as well. Like a die RPG. Didn't care for it. Did not like it at all. Because it's sort of like, so it's, let me get this straight. We're playing your character is an adult with a slew of emotional and mental problems. And you're playing a fantasy character. And it's like in a fantasy world. Like, maybe it's a cool comic. Just not my bag as far as role-playing games. But anyway, somebody else had just asked something about, something where it's like, there we go. Grimy Son of Groin says, Matterhag, were those spells play tested? I don't know. I can't really tell you if they were or not. Didn't you? Maybe. Maybe not. I mean, this is issue 8 of the zine, so possibly. Cooperative Waffles has joined us tonight. Welcome aboard. And I see Kathy Evans, but I didn't. Yeah, Kathy's been here for a while, right? Wasn't she here early? Or am I just imagining that? And Kathy's popping on in now. Possible. Oh, and I see Savage Splendor is jumping on in. All right. So that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about DriveThruRPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, I don't know, DriveThruRPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of the numerous One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission on that sale, most sales. And all those commissions really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Of course, if you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. If you're watching on a mobile device and you got some hype points left, sprinkle a few little hype points on there. Of course, if you're watching live, hanging out in chat, by all means, hit some engagement there. a little heart, or is there a thumbs up? I always forget if there's I think there's a thumbs up, isn't there? Maybe not. I don't know. There's a heart, smiley face, a little emoji that's like, holy shit. And so forth. No thumbs up. I'm imagining things. What can I tell you? Shazama85 and Peaceful Porcupine are jumping on in. Welcome. Anyway, so give that thumbs up, give a smiley face, what have you. But of course, if you enjoyed the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, maybe you find us to be a valuable resource, or you just, like what we do, you can actually support the outlet in a couple of other ways as well. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Oh, that's wet. And you can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links down in the show notes. Also down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. It's absolutely free to sign up. So by all means, pop on over to Discord and come hang with the gang. All right. So tonight's topic is going to be, has the old school Renaissance peaked? And is it now kind of on its downswing as far as gaming goes? But if you tuned in late, I had mentioned there were no giveaways last night. I really didn't have any of those items that I was talking about to give away, but I'm making up for it tonight. Because our topic is the old school Renaissance, I'm going to give away 2 copies of the Old School Essentials Classic Fantasy Rules Tome. So it's not the Advanced Fantasy, it's a Classic Fantasy. So it's the 1 volume. I'm going to give those away in PDF to a couple of lucky viewers. I've got 2 trivia questions. First correct answer to either one of the questions scores you a copy in PDF. And of course, we didn't have a giveaway yesterday, so it isn't as if we have anybody who can't win tonight. It's pretty much a free-for-all. So I'm going to give you the 2 questions, and then I think you know what's coming next. And then we will see what we get as far as the answers. So our 2 questions here. First off is the old school Renaissance or old school revival, whatever you want to consider it, is considered to run through first edition AD&D. Some people say second edition AD&D. I personally think second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is still OSR because it didn't radically change. It got tweaked, but it wasn't like massive changes. But the edition that no one includes into old school Renaissance, rightly so, is the 3rd edition of Dungeons and Dragons. So our first trivia question is, when did 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons launch? What year? And our second question is, what was the final hardcover rules supplement for the 1st edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons? So there you go. There are your 2 trivia questions. And our topic tonight, once again, has the OSR peaked? And we'll get into that topic. But first, it's time for a brief intermission. If I can click on the thing to get it started.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
This man is carrying a secret weapon. It's called 007. There are plenty of safer aftershaves to wear. New 007 is for volunteers only. Once you've used it, there's no turning back. Its subtle, masculine aroma makes any man dangerous. Even nice girls invent the wildest excuses just to meet you. But if you get into trouble, you're on your own. We won't even admit we sold it to you. If you still think you're cut out for this kind of living, get 007. For special assignments, you'll need the full line, including 007 shave cream, hair tonic, and spray deodorant. That's 007 for the license to kill women.
When you use 007, be kind.
You win a new car or a case of Wilkins Instant Coffee? I'll take the Wilkins Coffee. We'll never get rid of that car.
Horrors of Spider Island. 8 beautiful girls and one lone man struggling for survival, with death, sudden, violent, and horrible, lurking in the shadows. Horrors of Spider Island. Out of the night came a fate worse than death. A man's mind twisted, his brain poisoned, with an uncontrollable lust to kill. Horrors of Spider Island. A tale of terror that will leave you limp. So hideous and shocking, you won't believe your eyes. His hunger for victims was never satisfied. Prepare to be frightened out of your wits by the Horrors of Spider Island.
Wow, I can't believe our second trivia question has not gotten a correct answer yet. Interesting. Well, I will point out that the second edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons came out in 1989. Tessie Trekkies talking about the women on Spider Island. I'm kind of curious. I would not be surprised if that is one of those. All right, so hold on a second. First of all, Cthulhu, you knew you already had won the first trivia question. So why did you throw out the answer to the second one? That's pretty asshole-ish. Right up there with Cooperative Waffles throwing out the different years, which earned them a timeout. Because it was like, we already have the correct answer. So no giveaway tonight. Don't know what to tell you guys. So Savage Splinter says, double it and give it to the next person. All right, so you'll get 4 copies. Get 4 copies of the Classic Rules tome. All right. Anyway, moving around, more to RV Chuckle says more to give away tomorrow. Yeah, but tomorrow's topic won't be the old school. So don't know. Anyway, so tonight's topic is, has the old school renaissance hit its peak and now on the downward swing? Is it on a downward trend? Because I think there is a conception out there from people that, yeah, the OSR is kind of over. As Boomerman Dan Webb pops on in. Chris Lundgren's also joined us. But I think, in my opinion, as far as the retro clones go, I think we're pretty much done. I don't think we're going to see much more by way of new retro clones. Not to say that people won't try to release them. I just don't think they're going to catch on, because we've already got well, let's list some of the more popular ones off, right? Old School Essentials. We've got Labyrinth Lord, Swords and Wizardry, Basic Fantasy, which is absolutely free. So we've got that. We've got White Box Fantasy or Medieval Fantasy Adventures. I mean, we've got loads and loads of retro clones out there. Now, what I could see is if we saw more role-playing games that use, doesn't matter if it's original D&D, Basic Expert, Holmes Edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, what have you, and if it built on that. If we find games out there that do build on that. And like, as an example, Der Krieger is pointing out Dolmenwood, right? So Dolmenwood is an old school Renaissance sort of role-playing game, but it breaks the mold from that. It doesn't just rehash, doesn't even just rehash old school essentials. It kind of changes old school essentials a little bit. Pete Rockwood says, OSC is the foundation. It shares ability scores and modifiers with Dungeon Crawl Classics, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and many more. They can convert and integrate everything. New unique settings keep coming, like UVG. Well, we're still waiting on, what is it? Our Golden Age? It's like, what? It's now like a year late or something. It's not even ready to go to the printer. There you go. JD Sewell's with us, says Blue Holmes, which is an old SR fantasy role-playing game that essentially is the answer to the question, what if the Holmes edition went past 3rd level? And I think it goes up to 20th level, if I remember right. Savage Splendor asks, Golden Glory is the 2nd edition one, right? Yeah, it's 4 Golden Glory is the name of that. I've never had an opportunity to take a peek. Dirk Krieger says they just bought Land of Eam, which I have reviewed. It was one of my all-time favorite role-playing games from last year. And it has the OSR mindset with conflict, hex crawling, and factions. Player powers are more modern, and it uses tiered success on rolls of a D12. Yes, it does. And in fact, I just included the Land of Eam in our video about 5 fantasy role-playing games that are more fun than modern Dungeons and Dragons. So we've got that. Trekker says, yes, OGA is late and it burns. And it's like we're constantly getting update emails, and it's sort of like, It's like, hey, just letting you know that very little got done. That's not what they say, but when you read through it, it's kind of like, that's all I get. And I get it. I understand. There's a new baby in the family, and I think there was an illness as well. Anyway. Cooperative Waffle said, I thought the second question was when 1988, and then their autocorrect wouldn't play nice with Greyhawk Adventures. Didn't mean to ruin it for everyone. Cooperative Waffles, it wasn't your answer that ruined it. It was Pete Strakulich. Or no, I'm sorry, it was Keith Ulu. Pete Strakulich. Sorry, Pete Strakulich. It was Keith Ulu who had already won the first question, and I was like, okay. Said, all right, so we got the first one done, and then he answered the second question. Anyway, Rex Young is popping on in, says less steep of a learning curve. So Chris Lundgren says a lot of new OSR games include advantage and disadvantage. Is that still OSR? No, I would say it's not. And I would be really surprised if a creator, a publisher was sitting there promoting something as being old school or like old school revival. I know most people don't use Renaissance. I think they go with the old school revival. And including like advantage, disadvantage, or including like a mechanic like Benny's to re-roll dice and things like that. Not really. Grimy Son of Grunt says they're going to go play some AD&D first edition. So they are out. So cool to see you once again. Thanks for stopping on in. Dirk Krieger says it's because I can't spell Renaissance. That's why they don't say that. That's Trekkie said, yeah, Luka Rajic had cancer, needed surgery to fix it, and follow-up treatment. Yeah, that's why I'm not like carrying on and on and on about it being late. It's just, oh my gosh. How late is this going to be? You know, like appear out of the blue and I'll be like, what the hell is that doing here? Danny Gable is with us tonight. So Chris Lundgren says Dark Places and Demogorgons uses it, yet everything else is based on BX. I'm just saying advantage, disadvantage. So I would not consider that to be, something that would have something like that is, as 245 Trioxin just pointed this out. People refer to that as new SR. So, or things like Land of Eam, where mechanically it is not anything like Dungeons and Dragons, OD&D, what have you, but it still has that old school mentality. So yeah, that would be considered new SR. But as far as the OSR itself, I don't think it's dying out at all. I mean, you can kind of see, as an example, like today, you got the launch of the Demonic Grimoire for Old School Essentials. And that has pretty much, I looked at it at about 11 o'clock this morning. It launched at 9 o'clock this morning, my time. And it was, I think it was at 70,000. I don't like at 20. I think it may have been a $20,000 goal. Goals I don't really pay much attention to, because a lot of times you'll have companies come out with, a goal for their Kickstarter, and it's like, come on, really, $5,000, and then it's at $150,000 in 2 days. You're like, come on. Peaceful Porcupine says they've heard new SR applied on things that are very not D&D. Yeah, or if they share some common DNA, but there's a lot of more modern approach. Starter Quest says funded in 4 seconds. I'm sure it funded really quick. Like I said when I was sharing the news piece, I'm surprised that that's the first major rules expansion for Old School Essentials. Like, Old School Essentials has been out for quite a while. I mean, not like other old school Renaissance games, but it's been out for 7 years, maybe more than that. Dirk Krieger says, OSR has as many definitions as it has players. Anything that fits the play style fits for me. Some consider it more limited to old D&D editions. That's why I tend to use Renaissance, because to me, I also agree that you can have a role-playing game that's built on the chassis of any of those earlier editions of Dungeons and Dragons, but you can make tweaks to it and extend upon it. And to me, I think it's still old school Renaissance. Other people out there, if it's not a retro clone or very, very close to those exact rule mechanics, then it's not OSR. But yes, you are correct. Nobody can pin down what OSR actually is. I don't think anybody ever will. Because like I said, and as you point out, there are people who think if it's not strictly a D&D retro clone, it is not OSR. Now, if somebody releases like a game that's built on Classic Traveler, right? It's built on the little black books, I should say, from the little black box. I don't consider that OSR. I think it's retro, but I don't think it's OSR. And then there'd be people out there who'd be like, no, it's based on a, role-playing game from the late 70s. Yeah, that's OSR. But, so Peaceful Porcupine says, how do you classify Mausrita, for example? I do not consider that to be OSR. I don't know. Just Shazam85 says, Demonic Grimoire just hit 215,000 out of a $50,000 goal. Yeah, but still, that's the $50,000 goal is pretty low for OSE, coming from Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral. So it's not a third-party product. So yeah, I thought the 50,000 was a pretty low goal. Chris Langren says, many of the younger generation don't know that role-playing games have been around way before 5.5. Well, they know that Dungeons and Dragons goes back because a lot of them were around when the anniversary hit. So, but I think for most people out there, I'm going to say it again. I think the genre is important. I think the game master is your key. So OSR, new SR, modern, doesn't really matter. If a D20 RPG, I know there's some mention of the modern D20 that was, the bane of many for a while there. Michael Muirhead is joining us, and Mega Dungeon Month went for almost 4 days of overtime before closing. Yeah, we had quite a few out there. Cobalt Press had theirs. Who else did we have? Troll Lord Games. They had one out there. JD Soul says, Malsrita is new SR. It's actually built mainly off of Powered by the Apocalypse. But it does have some old school mentality to it. I think the way it's the most old school is in its adventure design, where it's just like a little brochure, right? And it's all just, hey, this is the location. This is what's here. It's not, oh, well, Rufus, the gray mouse, has been planning for 100 years to. It's like, oh, by the way, you're not going to encounter Rufus. It's like, okay, great. Dirk Krieger says, I think the draw of OSR and new SR for a lot of people is how much more open it is than 5X, while also being less open to interpretation that many new narrative-esque systems are. Omanal's with us. Welcome. Little Britain is also popped on into chat. So as far as old school Renaissance, as far as the retro clones go, I think we've pretty much seen I think we've hit our limit, right? So I think Swords and Wizardry and Labyrinth Lord, old school essentials, basic fantasy, Hyperborea, Adventures Dark and Deep, second edition, which I have reviewed. Really impressed. One person put all that together, the bestiary and the core book. Really good stuff. Little crunchier than I would run, but that's just me. So Adventurer Conqueror King system. All of these have, Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Toss that on in there because I know we got some fans of that. So I think as far as the core rule books for the role-playing games that are very, very close to, say, AD&D, D&D, OD&D, what have you, I think we've probably pretty much settled on those. That's not to say that we're not going to, on occasion, continue to see more come out where it's like, oh, hey, this is like Osric 3.0. I could see down the line an Osric 4.0 come out. So I could see those things happening. I could also see, PDFs available on Drive-Thru RPG where it's like, oh, hey, this is the new retro clone of Basic Expert and it's all cleaned up and blah. Okay, that's okay, fine. But you're standing in the shadows of all these others that came before. So, yes, the Cooperative Waffles points out, yes, Adventures Dark and Deep. Yeah, just mentioned it. So, Little Britain says we are at a limit of retro clones because they're all essentially the same thing with different art and layout and verbiage. But new SR, if I may, there's a lot of room to grow. In fact, I think it's the future. That is where we are going to see more and more. Tell you what else we're going to see more and more of, which I do not imagine is going to start slowing down anytime soon, are the OSR adventures, the OSR supplements, the companions to various different systems, the third-party products that get released for Swords and Wizardry or old school essentials, things like that. I think we are continue to see a lot of that out there. Now, just like everything else, it got to the point where the OSR, especially on like Drive-Thru RPG, you would see stuff that was just basically a 5e adventure that some third party threw together, and then they stat it for like AD&D. And that's like, oh, that's OSR. Well, no, it's really not OSR, right? I've even heard of stuff that's statted for 5e. And it's like, oh, this is OSR. And it's like, okay, how? It's not even statted for an old school Renaissance game. But yes, I think we'll continue to see a lot of that. And there is a lot of really great content that is out there for OSR role-playing games. And once again, we also are seeing a lot of development in the new SR, such as Land of Eam and Mausrita. I know I didn't say it that. Mausrita! Shadow Dark, another great example. Shadow Dark is not OSR. Shadow Dark is new SR. But once again, Shadow Dark is also something that we're seeing a lot of people trying to latch their wagons onto Shadow Dark with some less than stellar products out there. And I know Kelsey Dion is trying to keep her eye on that. But yeah, there's some excellent OSR stuff out there. There's also a good amount of trash out there. And the other thing that's really cool too is as far as the supplements, the supplementary material with the new classes and spells and bestiaries and all those kind of things, as well as the adventures, you can find completely different tones to them. So you'll find some that are going to be more like kind of a classic meat grinder sort of adventure, or more of a classic Dungeons and Dragons module to kind of introduce players to the game, as well as finding adventures and settings and supplements that are a little more tongue-in-cheek. Maybe don't take things as seriously, or provide you with the opportunity to kind of create the sort of adventures that you and your players are looking to experience by having kind of different tones for each region. So that's something we're seeing a lot of as well. So I don't see the OSR. I don't think the OSR has peaked. So there's my answer to tonight's question, tonight's topic. Has it peaked? No, I don't think so. What I think we have seen peak are the retro clone rule sets. So I think that we have seen. Dirk Krieger says, Shadow Dark is suffering the same fate Powered by the Apocalypse did. It's popular, so everyone tries to pump garbage out to try and get money, attention. Well, the getting's good. That is true. No Limelight Productions is with us. Welcome aboard. Michael Muirhead says you need to bring something new to gaming at this point. The retro clone market is overflowing. Yes, I would say there's a glut of the retro clones out there. Now, everybody, they can have their favorites. No problem with that. So, but yeah, that's why you don't see me share a lot of news about retro clones that come out, because it's sort of like, unless it looks really, really impressive, then I'll be like, oh, okay, well, they're sinking a lot of money into artwork and stuff for this. Yeah, okay, I'll float something out there. But for the most part, and it's funny because there are some retro clones that are out there that have been out for a long time that probably deserve more attention, like the Micro series, like Micro 78, Micro 74. I think there's a Micro 81. And if I remember right, I think the PDFs were free, or they're super cheap. They're like 99 cents. But they are very art light. In fact, I think some of the PDFs don't even really have any artwork. And if they do have artwork, it's public domain, which is fine. But they kind of try to approach the various different, like OD&D, Basic Expert, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and kind of just get to its core so that it's a bit easier for you to wrap your head around. But weirdly enough, the page counts are pretty high on those. I got to be honest, I've only kind of taken a peek at the free PDFs. So, all right. So there's the answer to tonight's topic. I do not think the old school renaissance has peaked, but I do think that we have hit pretty much critical mass as far as the retro clones go. And I do also think that there is lots and lots of room for the new SR to be folded in to people who enjoy old school styled role playing games. See, it takes a certain kind of player to play old school Renaissance. So it mainly tends to be players who are more interested in solving problems through this as opposed to uh, being a master of the character sheet and knowing all the ins and outs to the various different abilities and feats and things like that. Now, that's not to say that I don't think games like Pathfinder 2nd Edition aren't cool because they have all that stuff. But I prefer the sort of game where it's like, okay, so all right, so I've got a character sheet, I got stuff on there, but I'm using the old noodle here to try to figure out how we get out of this bind, get out of this pickle, as opposed to being like, it's okay. So my animal handling skill, would that do anything? So let's see. Little Britain says, if you're a GM with a local group, you can get them to try almost anything once. Ooh, I don't know. I think we got some people in chat who would disagree with that. But they often fall back on their comfort zone. Laconic Lane is with us in chat. 245 Triaxon says, Shadow Dark third-party stuff suffers from overpowered classes. Yeah, you'll see that. I think that's probably also something like Curse Scroll, the official zine for Shadow Dark. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't sat there and studied the classes to see how balanced they might be. But I think that may even have some unbalanced classes in it too. Chris Lengren asks, what makes a game new SR in my opinion? New SR is something that has like an old school mentality and may not necessarily utilize old school mechanics to achieve that. Land of Eam, prime example. Dolmenwood, prime example. I mean, Dolmenwood has far more old school Renaissance mechanics in its DNA than Land of Eam does. But as far as like the old school vibe, I think they're pretty similar as far as providing you with an old school feel to the proceedings. But a new SR game would have some similarities or utilize some of the mechanics of an OSR game. So not even really OSR, original games. So your OD&D, your basic expert, your Holmes edition, your advanced Dungeons and Dragons, maybe second edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but then utilize something different. So having like degrees of success based on the die roll would be something that's different. Advantage and disadvantage would be something that I would think, and at least in my opinion, makes something more new SR than OSR. Also having like bennies, having like fate points, luck points, whatever you want to consider those, which would allow for re-rolling dice or pushing your dice rolls. Or it's like, okay, well, you missed it. You can push your roll. To me, that would make something new SR. Let's see. We're going to wrap up in just a little bit, but there is just like a lot of comments going, which is great. Very cool. I am very happy to see that. So sadly enough, the chat just jumped. So I'm scrolling back. Little Britain says, in fairness, third-party supplements for any game has suffered this. Yeah, that is very true. Because let's be honest, I mean, you go over to like Dungeon Masters Guild, I would say probably 90% of the content that's available there would not be my bag of tricks. I'm not going to say it's crap, saying wouldn't be like my sort of adventures for 5e even, not just for an old school adventure. Just like I'll mention this because you're not going to see reviews of them. But you may recall we took a peek inside the various different GUI Cube box sets that were pretty damn impressive taking a look at them. All right, the artwork, some of the artwork was, you could tell that they were, you know, Kickstarter backers and things like that. But still, the rest of it, really impressive. And then I started reading and it was like, oh my God, this is like completely counter to what I feel makes for a good role-playing adventures or a good role-playing supplements. So the one like introductory adventure to their campaign, the Red Star something, Red Star Rising or something like that. It was there were sections where it was multiple pages of read aloud. Not just 5 paragraphs, multiple pages that the game master was supposed to read out loud or paraphrase. It's like, how would you paraphrase 2.5 pages of read aloud? I'm certainly not that good. What? And then there were things where it was in the read aloud for the different set pieces and stuff, where you're, as the game master, you're telling the players what their characters feel, what their characters were doing. And then there was actually early on in kind of like the introduction, it was like, oh yeah, you know, your players need to sit back and enjoy the adventure and blah. And I'm thinking, for one, in my opinion, one of the critical sins of a game master is to tell the players what their characters are doing, feeling. It's one thing to say, oh, yeah, oh, it's freezing cold. And you can actually see ice starting, well, little ice crystals starting to form on your exposed skin. Okay, well, that's feel, right? Oh, man, oh, I'm sure I'm freezing. But a great sense of sadness takes hold. What? No, you don't do that. And sadly, that's how the GUI Cube stuff is. So rather than me sitting there shooting videos and just repeating the same critique and giving them relatively low scores, certainly nothing that would probably incent people to pick it up outside of, well, I saw it looked really cool. Okay, well, then we got that with the first look videos. So, but yeah. So I'm sure, you know, there are a lot of people out there who love the GUI Cube stuff. At least the stuff that I had an opportunity to see, just not my way of running a role-playing game. And I mean, just diametrically opposed to the way I believe role-playing games should be structured. Because it was almost like, I know people complain about the Dragonlance adventures. I've never read them, so I can't tell you, but I've always heard that it's kind of like in the Dragonlance adventures, the player characters feel like they're almost like NPCs in the story. They're all, you know, and that's one of the things where you see with like a meta plot happens a lot, is where, okay, well, the player characters are taking part in the proceedings, But regardless of what they do, these things have to happen because we got to get to the next chapter, which is based on this book. So kind of how I kind of looked at it, where it was like, well, the players are kind of being told what their characters are doing. Like, So Chris Liner asks if I could take one OSR role-playing game on a desert island. Well, I would need to have some people there and some dice. Interesting. At this point in time, it would probably be, if it's going to be, if I wanted to be running something that is very much in the vein of the old adventures, then I would probably say it'd be Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy. Although I will point out, I don't find that to be perfect. I think it's really good. I think it's pretty excellent, but there are still a few things. That's why I'm really interested what the Old School Essentials starter set is going to comprise, because that was the one thing about the Old School Essentials core books that's missing, is there's no explanation how to play the game. The assumption is, you know what a role-playing game is. You know what these like structures within the rules are. So we don't need to explain it to you. That's why if somebody was like, oh man, I really want to play a role-playing game for the first time, I want to do an OSR game, I don't think I would point people towards Old School Essentials. I would maybe point them to Basic Expert and say, hey, you know what? If you want it in print, just get a print on demand from Drive-Thru RPG. Because one thing that the Basic Expert books do pretty well is explain the game. All right. Cooperative Waffle says, how do I show for OG and OSR settings for today? Yeah, we could maybe take a look at that. Maybe do that tomorrow. So, Volcanic Lame says, do not go light on Cobalt Press's World book, Jeff. The Northlands book. I haven't cracked it open yet. I have a couple of, I actually have a trio of role-playing crowdfunding previews. One I've finished shooting. I need to read the other two. And one just got sent to me. And two of them launch, I want to say a week from yesterday. So I know what I'll be doing this weekend. So if I had one OSR game to take to a desert island, yeah, I think it would be Advanced Fantasy for Old School Essentials. But yeah, if that's what you're talking about, I haven't taken a peek at it yet. But I also happen to be a reviewer who doesn't go apeshit about typos and that. I will bring them up, and I will deduct from the review score for it. But I mean, I've reviewed Troll Lord game stuff. So they are kind of the kings of grammatical errors, and it's mainly typos that I don't know what it is. It just, they slip on through. So, and then there's some discussion about Castles and Crusades. Chris Leonard says I guess Barnes and Noble has its own role-playing game now. Saw it as a starter yesterday. Cosmere RPG. Cosmere is Brandon Sanderson, and it is from Brotherwise Games. So if you're talking about Cosmere, that's not Barnes and Noble. It's not their brand. They may have been the publisher, possibly. So Dirk Krieger was asking about the Castles and Crusades home world of Adir. Is that what it? I forget how it's pronounced. Yeah, like Kevin R. Smith's pointing out, Barnes & Noble's carries it. They don't own it. Because, yeah, I would expect them to carry that if they're carrying role-playing games, because it's based on the various different settings for the Brandon Sanderson books. So it's Mistborn, and what is it, the Starlight Archive or something like that? I don't read Brandon Sanderson, but so yeah, Chris Langren said they were promoting it as a Barnes & Noble exclusive in the store. Yeah, because it's probably in Barnes & Noble before other retailers. Wizards of the Coast does that all the time too. That's why the last place to get D&D releases is normally Amazon. So that's why you'll see, like, if you're looking on Amazon, it'll be like, oh, this comes out August 12th. And if you look on like D&D Beyond, it's like, oh, hits retail July 31st. It's like, yeah, hits stores, does not hit Amazon. So yeah, that's what I would take a guess they were doing. 245 Trioxin says they're guessing they'll carry the Dungeon Crawler Carl role-playing game as well. Possibly, maybe, I don't know. It all depends on, what Renegade Game Studio does with that. And Kevin R. Smith says they might also have an exclusive edition for Barnes & Noble, like they do for some classic books. Yeah, that's a possibility. Tabletop Scholar is popping on in. Said, so what was the conclusion? We peaked. I think the revival is finished and have moved on, hopefully to innovating what they have. So we essentially got to the point that we are at critical mass as far as retro clones go. And I don't really foresee much coming out that's going to try to compete with what we already have, unless it's, somebody just releasing something on Drive-Thru RPG. I don't think we're going to see like huge Kickstarters. Like it's like, oh, hey, this is an AD&D retro clone. Look, everybody. So I think that has peaked and is pretty much maybe even fallen off a cliff. What I don't think has peaked are the supplemental materials as well as adventures. I think that we still got plenty of room to grow. So Cooperative Waffle says, no, we haven't peaked yet. Signs of flood. All right, then. So what should we talk about tomorrow night? And no, I am not going to do a video about, oh, I'm not quitting. I swear, I have been kind of tempted to have a topic where it's like why most Dungeon Tube videos are crap. But I don't want to name names because I don't really watch, the other various different outlets out there. Plus, this, I say it all the time. I don't know if people realize this or not, but this isn't a Dungeon Tube outlet because our focus is not Dungeons and Dragons. We weren't built on Dungeons and Dragons. So if Dungeons and Dragons went away, it would not have any effect on this outlet. This is a news and review outlet. So, but Tabletop Scholar says, top 5 pet peeves for the Dungeon Tube content. Thing is, I really don't know. What I do hear from people is that it's it's just people's hot takes. Now, there are some dungeon tubers out there who are trying to like inform. Then there are others who are just, oh, let's just shit all over Dungeons and Dragons twice a week or once a week, whatever. Some are like focused. They just want to focus on the hobby and negative aspects of it. And then, of course, we had the rage baiters out there and stuff like that. But, it's opinion is what it is. And some people, say, oh, yeah, oh, my God, that is how you game master. Oh, those are the tips that I needed to be a dungeon master. And then there's other people who are going to sit there and go, what the hell are they talking about? Pete's Racklet says, what kills me about dungeon tubers is they were insane during the open game license fiasco, calling for justice. They were the first to bow the knee and run back to Wizards of the Coast, with the exception of a few real ones. Well, I remember when I publicly stated that Wizards of the Coast would not stick to their guns, that they would just pretty much chicken out. And everybody was getting all worked up about the new open game license. And I was like, trust me, it ain't happening, because as soon as they see all the pushback, they're going to say, yeah, this probably isn't a real good idea. And I can't tell you how much shit I took for that. People were like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's right there in writing. They said what they're going to do. It's like, yeah, okay. It's like, I don't know. You ever see what corporations do? Like, come on. But, yeah, I get it. I think some folks, and, I can't put myself in other people's places, but I would think that some of those dungeon tubers out there probably thought to themselves, damn, my channel is built off of D&D. And as soon as Wizards of the Coast walked back the new edition of the game license, they felt, okay, hey, you know what? We won. So they could go back to having the same relationship they did with Wizards of the Coast in the first place. So maybe that was it. Little Britain says, love it when each new tuber discovers a thing and thinks they are the first ever. Oh, I got to tell you guys about this Dungeon Crawl Classics. Although I guess Dungeon Crawl Classics gets a lot of hate on YouTube. Did not know that. I learned that today. So, Breakfast is with us tonight. Says Matt Mercer has hostage eyes. Tabletop Scholar says they have short histories in the space, lest we forget the open game license fiasco of 4E. I know nothing of it. I'll be the first to point that out. So, really wasn't following Dungeons and Dragons during its 4th edition, or really its 3rd or 2nd editions, to be very honest. And I point that out all the time. All righty. So that is it for this time out. I'll figure out something, even if we just do an AMA tomorrow night. Maybe we'll do that, because there's other stuff going on behind the scenes. So might be a shorter show tomorrow. So I'll figure out something. I think it's probably going to be an AMA. Anyway, Little Britain says, saw a new tuber discover how to have players roll in secret. Everyone was praising him for production quality. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen this video, but I would think there are actually a few ways for them to roll in secret. I have had players reach over and, because remember, for years and years, I didn't use a screen. I had another like chair next to me, and I'll have like a box top sitting in it. And I would have, like the book on my lap or whatever. And I just have them reach over and throw the die into the box. That'd be one. I would also say that it's probably pretty obvious if somebody's using a Game Master screen, just have them reach over the screen and drop their die and roll it that way. Don't know. All right. Cooperative Waffle says, talk about my brain housing group having a no shit Sherlock moment. All right. Anyway, if you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watch live and took part in chat, you get a tip of the cap. Because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company as I'm sharing the news or pontificating about a topic. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking part in hanging out with us on the show, live or after the fact. It is much appreciated. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for our latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, before I leave, I also want to say thank you to our Patreon members, Ben Oathwaite, Kaval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzak, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavalho, Kevin King, GameCat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Fire Drift, Pete Straklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, The Madman, and Flint Fireforge. It is vastly appreciated. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. And of course, if you like the video, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. And if you ring the bell, by all means, select all notifications. That way you should get informed when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And it should also inform you whenever I share other videos, such as my recent review of Adventures Dark and Deep Core Bestiary from BRW Games. Thanks, everybody. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and as always, I certainly hope all of you out there get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.